Here's a hot take for you. Steph Curry, most overrated basketball player I've ever seen.
A podcast out of San Diego, California that rewrites the definition of mediocrity.
Yeah, and I don't trust anyone that calls a hot dog a sandwich. Are you crazy?
Are you stupid or something?
And I'll tell you another thing. You know what? I think pineapples do belong on pizza.
I'm as stupid as stupid does.
I think watching pitchers try to hit in baseball is one of the worst things in all of sports.
Oh my God, Paul, you make me so mad sometimes.
And I don't want to hear any of this 6-0 in the finals. LeBron James will retire as the GOAT.
Shut the up! Now, here's your host, Paul Reindl.
All right. Welcome to it. Another edition of the Reindl Report, episode 51. Episode 51. How about that, huh? We celebrated the milestone last week. We're getting right back into things this week. This is the Reindl Report. I am Paul Reindl. This is a San Diego sports podcast, so we're going to focus on some San Diego storylines for sure. We might dip into what's going on nationally as well. Got a few things I want to talk about today. The NFL is back, and oh man, it was the worst possible scenario for the team formerly known as the San Diego Chargers. Maybe you know them now as the Los Angeles Chargers. The worst absolute possible scenario in week one of the preseason. I know it's preseason. We're going to get to that. I want to tell you about a story that brought just tears to my eyes. Were they funny tears? Were they sad tears? Were they happy tears? I don't know. I'll get to that. We'll get to that, I promise. Also, you know, with football, with great sports comes tired, old conversations. Isn't that what Uncle Ben said in Spider-Man? With great sports comes tired, old debates or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it was something about great power and responsibility. I don't know. I thought it was something about that. Anyways, we're going to talk about that. It's the same argument, same debate that we happen to hear every single year when we're talking about particular sports. Each sport has one, you know, whether it's, oh, should we get rid of the DH? Oh man, is LeBron better than Michael Jordan? No, he's not. You know, it's just the same thing. It's the recycled debates that we hear over and over and over again. And another one made the news last week, so we will talk about that as well after we get through some NFL stuff. But you know, I don't usually get distracted, but I got just a couple of texts there, and I'm going to turn my phone on to silent mode, so that does not happen anymore throughout the rest of the podcast once I get rolling. But since I haven't really gotten into it yet, I'll tell you all that tweet said, and I'll leave the context out. It said, one of those tweets here. That's a lot of shit talking from someone who is new to the league. So, talking a little bit about fantasy football, I joined a new league with some friends, and I only know like a couple of the people in this league, and I'm just wasting no time just trash talking away. Haven't had the draft yet, and I'm just being relentless with them because I will just say fantasy football trash talking is my absolute favorite form of trash talking. So that's what caught my eye there as the sound was going off, as the text sound, and I just happened to glance over at it. Phone is away. The phone is on vibrate. We won't get to that anymore. But, okay, I want to start with the NFL. Chargers, season 1 of the preseason, welcoming the Seattle Seahawks to the StubHub Center in Los Angeles. Carson, in particular. So the Chargers, they lose 48-17. Seahawks win. It was a 31-point victory for the Seahawks. And I understand it's preseason, and there are some people out there. There's actually a lot of people out there that go, well, it's preseason, like you can't take anything away from it. I call partial BS on that. There are some things you can take away from it. How many jobs have we seen won in the preseason? You know, I mean, I'm pointing to guys at like Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson. Those are jobs that were won in the preseason based on how they played. So don't tell me the preseason means nothing. Now, you can't put a ton of weight into what you see, but when you see a guy like Mike Glennon go, what was it, like 2 for 8 for like 12 yards or something, you know, in a pick, like horrible in the Browns preseason opener earlier in the week, you can draw a couple of conclusions there. You could say, okay, maybe he wasn't necessarily. That's at least a red flag on a guy that they paid like $44 million to bring in over the offseason. I'm pulling it up right now here. The Bears and the Broncos. Mitch Trubisky did have a good game. He was, obviously the first round pick. Yeah, Mike Glennon, 2 for 8 for 20 yards and an interception with a rating of 0.0. Again, I understand it's preseason. You can't draw much of a conclusion from a stat line like that, but you can say, oh God, we paid that guy $40+ million to come in and replace Jay Cutler. I mean, the Chicago Bears right now, their trio of quarterbacks that they're marching out for the preseason is Mitch Trubisky, the first round pick, number 3 overall for the Bears, who also was in the news last week, and I'm just going off on a side tangent here, saying that he thinks LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. That's a debate I've had many times, debate I'm going to have many more times, debate a lot of people are having, and it's, I think, a mostly fair debate, but I probably wouldn't say that if I was in Chicago. I probably wouldn't be saying that Michael Jordan isn't the greatest player of all time. You got to remember, this is a guy who comes to the draft party, the welcome to our, the unveiling of their first round pick, and he was booed because Chicago didn't want him. So either he's just trolling the crap out of the Bears fan base, or he just doesn't get it. I tend to lean towards the latter. So, I mean, Mitch Trubisky, Mike Glennon, and Mark Sanchez. That's what you're getting from the Chicago Bears. Not a lot of enticing quarterback play there for the preseason. But my point remains, you can take a few things away from that. I mean, the Chargers, for example, their first drive was the only drive that the starting offense, the first team offense, was out there, at least Rivers and guys like Rivers and Antonio Gates. And Phillip Rivers absolutely, he shredded that Seahawks first team defense. I mean, it was like a hot knife through butter, which has happened before. It happened, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago whenever the Seahawks came to Qualcomm Stadium. I'll get to that, go back to that game in a minute. Rivers and Gates absolutely just shredded them. It was just these dink and dunk, 5-6 yard over the middle passes, and the Seahawks had no answer for them. And so the very first touchdown, preseason, regular season, what have you, the first Chargers touchdown at the StubHub Center, of course, had to be a Phillip Rivers to Antonio Gates touchdown. It wasn't Kellen Clemens to Hunter Henry. It wasn't Melvin Gordon, ushering in a new era. It was Phillip Rivers to Antonio Gates. And I just go, son of a bitch. I mean, I was literally typing the tweet. They're on the 8-yard line or something, and I was typing a tweet while I was watching the game because, yes, I was watching the game, okay? I can get to some more in-depth thoughts on why I was watching the game, but just in general, curiosity absolutely killed me yesterday. This podcast coming out on a Monday evening, the game being Sunday night, curiosity killed me. I felt like I had to watch this game. Not because I was just going to be, I was like, I'm going to be doing a podcast about it. But I was so curious how it was going to look. The stadium, the fans, were there going to be a bunch of Seahawks fans there? Were there going to be any Chargers fans there? How was the team going to do? Curiosity got me. So I'm sitting there watching the game, and I'm literally typing out a tweet that goes, God, I really hope the first touchdown at the StubHub Center isn't Rivers to Gates. I only get a couple of words in, and then I look up and I hear Spiridides, and Dan Fouts, or Doug Fouts, whatever his name was. Get to that in a minute. I hear Spiro, touchdown Chargers, and I look up and Antonio Gates, sure enough, has the ball in the end zone. And I just go, God, son of a bitch. Like, of course. But that's really, I didn't take anything from the actual game. I mean, the only takeaway I have, because it is preseason, and as I just went on a rant a few minutes ago, you can't take away, I think it's foolish to say you can take away nothing from a preseason game. You can take away some. And the only thing I took away was that the Seahawks, they have a lot more depth than the San Diego Chargers do. Okay, they're backups and they're third stringers and they're fourth stringers and they're guys that you don't even know who they are. Those guys, the Seahawks have better those guys than the Chargers. That's just a straight up fact. I don't know how else to sugarcoat it for you. The Seahawks, I should say, are perennial Super Bowl contenders every single year for the last, 5, 6, 7 years now. The Chargers are not. So the Seahawks have more depth than the Chargers. That's all that I took away from a 48-17 victory last night. I guess you could say, the Chargers' first team offense torched the Seahawks' first team defense, but after that, it was just backups. It was second stringers. It was rookies. It was stuff. It was guys that you just didn't really know about. So that was all I took away from the game on the field. My biggest takeaway from the game in general was this. I almost said San Diego. The Los Angeles Chargers. The LA Chargers are the laughingstock of the NFL. They are the laughingstock of the league. This team, I try to give them credit when credit is due. I really do. Like, when we see Dean Spanos out at the first couple training camps shaking hands with fans, and they got like the high five tunnel as players are walking onto the field for the first time, like I get it. And he does the media tours and stuff. They have to make a name for themselves in their new city. All right, it's easy to say, well, they never did that crap when they were here, blah, blah, blah. Like, true. But the fact is, they're not here anymore. We would be living in the past by just comparing things that they didn't do when they were here. But I get it. They have to make the best of what they got. They got to make a name for themselves. So I understand completely why they do some of the things that they do. Doesn't mean I have to like it. But this is the same old Chargers in the sense that they make the same mistakes. I mean, just last week, their social media department is an absolute travesty. They wished Mike Williams, their first round pick, who is hurt. We've gone over on that before, but that's neither here nor there. Mike Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson, they tweet him happy birthday, big shout out happy birthday to Mike Williams or whatever, tagged him on Twitter. And he goes crying emoji faces and he's like, birthday's not until October, but appreciate the love or, something like that. And I go, how do you do that? Like, how does that even happen? And then a couple of days before the games, I see before the game on Sunday, I think it was Friday afternoon, I see it gets tweeted out that the Chargers, I don't know if it was a ticket or if it was a program or if it was a media guide. You couldn't see the whole whatever it was in the picture. It was just a small portion of the picture. And at the bottom of this ticket or program, whatever it was, it said, reminder, the gates to Qualcomm Stadium open at 5 o'clock. The gates to Qualcomm Stadium, the parking lot opens 5 hours prior to kickoff or something like that. And I go, really? You're printing that on your tickets to the StubHub Center? Like, I don't know, man. A part of me understands that, hey, this is a completely new team now, new franchise. They're rebranding. They're redoing all this stuff. Some things are going to fall through the cracks. But it doesn't mean I can't laugh every time that happens. Your tickets literally say the gates, the parking lot at Qualcomm Stadium opens 5 hours prior to kickoff. What about the StubHub Center? Because that's where you played, damn it. Oh, Chargers, what are you doing? And then I see a picture. I had missed this when it actually happened, but I see a picture going around on Twitter, and somebody took a picture of their television. And you know how when you're watching the game, you got the score on the bottom line, right? And have one team on one side and their score, and then the other team's name on the other side and their score. It'll tell you the first and 10. It'll tell you the score. It'll tell you the time remaining in the quarter, all that stuff. Sometimes right above it, it'll say, Seahawks at Chargers broadcast crew, and it'll tell you who's on the broadcast, right? So it says Spiridides, who was doing the play-by-play for the Chargers, and it said Alex Flanagan, who was working the sideline for the Chargers. And then it said Doug Fotts. I'm pausing a second. I'm letting you try to think about who Doug Fotts is. Doug Fotts is nobody. F-A-U-T-S. I'm looking at it right now. Doug Fotts. Chargers legendary quarterback Dan Fouts was in the broadcast booth. They might have meant Dan Fouts, but instead, no, Doug Fotts. And I'm just going, how? How do you do this? This is a Chargers production. Preseason games are made by the teams, their broadcast crew, the elements that are shown during the game, the cues that the broadcasters are given, like, hey, make sure you come out to Chargers training camp in Los Angeles, fight for LA, hashtag fight for Carson, whatever they want to say. The Chargers put that broadcast together. So how does it slip through the cracks that they don't get Dan Fouts' name right? How do you do that? That'd be like the Bulls in a preseason NBA game saying our broadcast crew, Kevin Harlan, alongside Mickey Jackson. Did you mean Michael Jordan? Who's Mickey Jackson? I don't know who that is. Legendary Bulls shooting guard Mickey Jackson. Who? I mean, it blew me away that the Chargers could do that. But then again, I also wasn't surprised. So the Chargers, they just can't get out of their own way. They cannot get out of their own way. But what led me to think that they are the laughing stock of the NFL, it was something that the Seahawks actually did. And look, the Chargers, we've gone over this countless times. You remember when they changed their name and announced they were moving to Los Angeles, and we had the letter on Twitter, and they changed their logo to that ridiculously horrible LA logo. And professional teams all across the world, especially in America, though, were just trolling the Chargers, changing their logos, copying them, making fun of the fact that they had a horrible logo. We've been over that. So you remember when that happened. Well, this was similar to that, because the Chargers, they play at a little soccer stadium, right? You remember that now? They play at the StubHub Center, and so the Seahawks, as most NFL teams do, they were tweeting throughout the game. They were, the Chargers do it, the Rams do it. Every team does it. They tweet, 3 minutes into the first quarter, touchdown, so-and-so to so, 2-minute warning, halftime coming up. They will keep you up to speed on how the game is going. So the Seahawks throughout the game are doing that, but they're tweeting as if you're watching a soccer match. Now, if you don't follow soccer team accounts or reporters, you might not know what I'm talking about. A lot of times it will start with a number and then, the apostrophe sign, like 20th minute, 20 apostrophe would say, 20th minute. And then it'll tell you what happened. So-and-so to so-and-so, beautiful goal, 2-1, whatever. I don't know. not a big soccer guy, but I do follow a couple of accounts. I do follow a couple of teams. One of them being the Seattle Sounders, who also joined in on the Seahawks trolling of the Chargers. So the Seahawks are tweeting like it's a soccer match the entire time. And I'm pulling it up right now. I mean, the one that I remember in particular, what a strike. Boykin to Lawler in the 20th minute for the score, 17-14, hashtag SEA versus LAC. And then the Seattle Sounders, they responded to that by saying scoring at StubHub Center is a blast, isn't it? I could not believe it. It was so funny. I mean, something about, I've gone over this before, when professional sports teams, when they know how to tweet, it just makes me so happy. When they tweet right and they trash talk other teams and they go back and forth, it just makes me happy. But the Seahawks absolutely stole the show yesterday by tweeting out, 1 minute, first minute, there's the kick, and we're underway from the StubHub Center in Los Angeles, 0-0. Third minute, Earl Thomas bringing the boom early. Rivers finds Gates in the 9th minute for the score. 12th minute, Blair Walsh finds the back of the net, put 3 on the board. Like, those are soccer terms. It was hilarious. This is a joke that I had seen fans or former fans and members of the media make throughout the day. Derek Togerson, who was on the podcast last week, and we talked about the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, episode 50, talking about LaDainian Tomlinson. He was doing the same thing. He was tweeting it like it was a soccer match, and I even mentioned to him, I go, what do you, like, I'm like reading some of his tweets, and here he goes, 19th minute for the Seahawks. They go for it on 4th and goal from the 2, Boykin, Lawler, touchdown, Seattle. And I tweet at him, I go, I just picked up on your blank minute. So it wasn't the 19th minute, it was 4 minutes into the second quarter. And so to see an actual team doing that, it just made me so happy. It put a big smile on my face. It was just a joke. And that made me go, wow, Chargers, like, the Seahawks don't respect you. Like, nobody in the NFL, you're the laughing stock of the league. And then, of course, you come out, you get blown out by 31 points in the first game at your stadium, but it was preseason. Whatever. 31-point loss, a 31-point loss, okay? And then you had a measly 21,000 fans in your stadium. And I've seen people on both sides of the debate saying, well, it was a preseason game, like, why would they be there? Look, man, the Rams had 68,000 at their game on, was it Saturday when they were playing the Cowboys at the Coliseum? 68,000 fans compared to 21,000 fans for the Chargers. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 4,000 to 5,000 of those were Seahawks fans. I don't think that's a harsh prediction at all, because I was at the last game that the Chargers and the Seahawks played when it was at Qualcomm, and it was like 60-70% Chargers fans, okay? People want to fly down from Seattle to live in, to go to Southern California for a vacation. They're like, oh, my team is going to be playing football in Southern California. Why not? It's the same reason every northern, cold weather city's team always outperform the Chargers fans at Qualcomm. Denver, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, New England, because in November and December, it's pretty shitty to live in those parts of the country. And those people are bundled up in snow gear, and they go, wait, we can go to San Diego where it's 75 degrees in December and watch our favorite team play? Done and done. Okay, so the Seahawks fans travel well in general, but they're for sure going to travel well to Southern California. So I think it's probably more like 15,000 Chargers fans there. And the stadium only holds like 29,000. I think they bring in some extra seating. So I don't know exactly the exact number that it extends out to, but it's about 29,000. So you could say 21,000 out of 29,000. It's not that bad. Percentage-wise, I suppose you could make that argument. I'm not a math major. I'm not doing the math here, and I'm not going to take the time to do it while I'm talking on this podcast, but I would guess that 21,000 in a 29,000 seat stadium, probably comparable percentage-wise to 68,000 in a, I think the Coliseum holds like 93 or 94,000, probably about the same. So you could say that they drew the same amount of people, but they didn't. Percentage-wise, sure. But for an NFL game, preseason or not, to only draw 21,000 fans, that is pathetic. That is a joke. I saw people reporting that last year's first preseason game for the Chargers, obviously it was in San Diego, not Los Angeles. There wasn't as much hate for the team as there is now. Things were different. Apples and oranges, I get it. But they had 45,000 at Qualcomm. The goddamn Cleveland Browns, they had over 50,000 at their game. Do I need to go tell you who the Browns played? I don't remember because it was the Cleveland Browns in their first preseason game. But I saw that they had over 50,000. All right, they played the Saints. And because I have it right here, I might as well just go ahead and tell you exactly how many they had. But Cleveland hosting the New Orleans Saints, they had, it's not on ESPN, I saw it on Twitter, which is the worst thing you could possibly say. But this person was an actual NFL reporter. They had a little blue check mark, so I'm going to have to trust them when I saw that they said that the Browns had over 50,000 for their week 1 preseason game. So for the Chargers to only get 21,000 fans, it's just a joke. It is an absolute joke. All right. I saw it on Twitter. That is the most insane thing you could ever say. Like that's like, that's like being in school and in college, right? And you told your teacher, you told the professor, where did you hear that? Like, where did you get this fact? Oh, I got it on Wikipedia. Now, look, I like Wikipedia. I use Wikipedia. It's a really good base to at least go and do some research. You could start somewhere with Wikipedia, and then you got to definitely do your own research to prove that that was actually something that was true, because anybody can go in there and write it. But Wikipedia typically just gets ragged on as far as it's not a legitimate resource. You're not going to want to use that for any research papers, any thesis like that. But anyways, I want to move on to, I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, with some sports comes the same old tired debates. And we had one of those come up last week in the news. It actually happened on the day we recorded the last podcast, and I just didn't get a time to read into it and include it on the podcast. Last week was pretty much just solely devoted to LaDainian Tomlinson, my interview with Derek Togerson from NBC. But UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen, who could very well be one of the absolute top 2 or 3 quarterbacks going into the draft next year, he, along with fellow Angelino Sam Darnold, 2 of the top favorites for top quarterbacks going into this NCAA season. So Josh Rosen, he's in the news because he did an interview with Bleacher Report. It was a one-on-one. There's no video, no audio for it. Otherwise, I would try to include that for you. But it's just one of those. It's a news-like article, interview, where it says Bleacher Report, and then it has their comments, and then it says Rosen, and it has his comments. So I just want to read a little bit of what Josh Rosen had to say. You've probably already heard this by now. Again, I'm admitting this was not fake news, but it was old news. Okay, this came out last week. You've probably had a chance to hear about it. If not, you've probably heard at least an idea of what they're talking about. So Bleacher Report says, look at the bright side. You got a chance to heal, maybe catch up on some school. And Rosen says, quote, "Don't get me started. I love school, but it's hard. It's cool because we're learning more applicable stuff in my major, economics, not just the prerequisite stuff that's designed to filter out people. But football really dents my ability to take some classes that I need. There are a bunch of classes that are only offered one time. There was a class this spring I had to take, but there was a conflict with spring football, so ... So football wins out. Well, you can say that. So then Bleacher Report says, so that's a reality for student athletes playing at a major university. And Rosen goes on and he says, I didn't say that. You did. Laughs. Look, football and school don't go together. They just don't. Trying to do both is like trying to do 2 full-time jobs. There are guys who have no business being in school, but they're here because this is the path to the NFL. There's no other way. Then there's the other side that says raise the SAT eligibility requirements. Okay, raise the SAT requirement at Alabama and see what kind of team they have. You lose athletes, and then the product on the field suffers. That kind of seems like fighting words towards Alabama, but neither here nor there. Rosen goes on, human beings don't belong in school with our schedules. No one in their right mind should have a football player's schedule and go to school. It's not that some players shouldn't be in school. It's just that universities should help them more instead of just finding ways to keep them eligible. Anytime any player puts into school, they will take away, or what does it say? Anytime any player puts into school will take away from the time that they could put into football. They don't realize that they're getting screwed until it's too late. Interesting phrasing there. You have a bunch of people at the universities who are supposed to help you out, and they're more interested in helping you stay eligible. At some point, universities have to do more to prepare players for university life and help them succeed beyond football. There's so much money being made in the sport. It's a crime not to do everything you can to help the people who are making it for those who are spending it. Now look, I've had this debate so many different times. I don't know what else to say on the subject. I do think that college players should be compensated to some degree. I think something needs to change, but I'm not sitting here telling you that I have all the answers because I don't. I don't know how that would look. If you're gonna pay the football players, you got to play the volleyball players, you got to play the tennis players, you got to pay the golfers. You're gonna tell me like football takes more time? Like, no. People out on the golf course, like, unless you can get 18 holes in 30 minutes, like you're going to be spending some time on the golf course. All right. Tell me the tennis team, the tennis coaches don't want their players practicing as much as they possibly can. I'm not comparing it. It's apples and oranges, different sports. I get it. I'm just saying all D1 athletes have to practice. All D1 athletes have to hit the weight room. All D1 athletes have school as well. I don't think football gets necessarily a pass there. And then the other side of the argument is, well, football brings in a lot more money, like, exponentially more money than those other sports. That's true. That is a fact. But I don't think you're going to be able to get away with paying football players and not paying, any other sport, male or female. So if you can figure out the answer there, go for it. But I do think the players in college should be able to make some money. Maybe that means that they're allowed to sell autographs or sell, game used shoes or whatever. Like somebody will pay those, right? Pay for those, right? Like some company out there will buy Sam Darnold's game used cleats. Like if he has a second pair of cleats that he wants to give them away or whatever, I don't have a problem with that. I have no problem doing that. If a player wants to say, hey, like I'm going to be at this so-and-so trading card store, I'm going to be selling autographs, $50 a pop, whatever. If people are going to pay for it, I don't have a problem with them making some money that way. I truly don't. But my problem with what Josh Rosen was saying was things like trying to do both is like trying to do 2 full-time jobs, school and football. And I go, hey, Josh, man, like newsflash for you, buddy. Like a lot of people have to work and go to school. All right, you're talking to one of them. Now, I didn't play football when I was at San Diego State. My freshman year roommate actually did. So I have an idea of what their schedule was like. He was waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. to head to the gym and then go to school and then go back to practice and then work out afterwards and then study hall. Like I know what the schedule looks like for a Division I football player. and he wouldn't have had time to work a full-time job unless he wanted to work the graveyard shift and literally never sleep. So I get it. But you know that going in. All right, you did two-a-days in high school. Like you worked out probably in, before class in high school. You'd go to the gym, work out, go to school, and then practice, or maybe you'd hit the weights after practice or something. Like you devoted that amount of time to get something done is what I'm saying. You knew going into college that this was what your schedule was going to be like. Probably not going to have a lot of time to earn money working at a part-time or a full-time job outside of school and football. But here's what you're getting in return, Josh Rosen. You are getting a free education. You are getting meals 2-3 times a day. You are getting clothes, workout clothes, whatever, t-shirts, shorts, sweatshirts, whatever it is. You're not paying for those. All right, a nice university sweatshirt, it's like $50-$60 these days. You know what I mean? Like that's several hours somebody would have to work at a part-time job just to afford a decent Nike sweatshirt with their school's logo on it. I don't think you're paying for those, right? If you're on the team. But it's primarily your education. You are getting a free ride. Assuming that you're on scholarship, you're getting a free ride. What about the guy like me, for example? You're listening to someone talk with a little bit of experience in going to school and having to work. I worked 35 to 40 hours a week in college. I was managing a restaurant, Italian fine dining. And by Italian fine dining, I mean it was Woodstock's Pizza. All right, it was like a pizza pub bar type thing near a college, but doesn't matter. I was still putting in the 30 to 40 hours a week at the restaurant, going to school during the day and working at night. And you know what? There was times when I had 2 jobs and school, and I just didn't know how to balance my time very well. It actually caught up with me. So I know how you feel, Josh. It's tough. But I just don't agree that you're saying football and school don't mix. That's like saying football and jobs don't mix. All right. It's tough and you can be upset about having to do what you got to do. But the fact remains, a lot of people have to go through that. A lot of people work their way through college. That's just a normal thing. Doesn't make anybody any better, doesn't make them any worse. It's just the way it is. Not everybody has mommy and daddy to pay tuition, to pay their rent, to pay for their food, to pay their electricity bill, give them spending money, to pay their car payments, to buy the gas, to pay their insurance, to pay their cell phone bill. Not everybody has that. Some people do, and that's great. Good for them. All you have to do is focus on school. Great. But not everybody has that luxury. Most people have to work at least a part-time job, if not a full-time job, to survive during the time that they're in college so that they can pay for school. What you're getting, Josh, is not only the free ride, you're graduating with no debt. Whether or not you go on to the NFL after playing your 4 years in college, obviously I would think Josh Rosen probably has a career in the NFL. But, what about the defensive lineman who doesn't get drafted? You know what I mean? His career's done after college. Well, he graduates at least with a degree that he didn't have to pay for and no debt. Something I would think anyone listening right now that has college tuition debt to their name would sign up for 100%. If it meant that you didn't have a lot of free time because you were, your schedule was complicated as it is for student athletes, you would sign up for that 10 times out of 10 is my guess if it meant no college debt. So I didn't like what Josh Rosen said. And again, I don't know Josh Rosen. I don't know if he's a good guy. I don't know if he's a bad guy. There was no video, no audio to this, so you couldn't tell his tone. You couldn't see his reaction, his facial expressions while he was making some of these comments. But to say that a football player is getting screwed by the university, if it's about the schedule, I disagree 100%. Now, if you want to say they're getting screwed because they're helping contribute and bring in, tens of millions of dollars for the, the football program that the university gets, I suppose you could say that is, getting screwed because you're not making anything, but you're bringing in millions and millions of dollars. But at the same time, you signed up for it. I don't know, maybe the league, the NCAA, will eventually figure something out. I do think something needs to change. I agree with Josh Rosen in that sense. Something needs to change. Maybe that just means the players, hey, if you can make some money doing this, selling autographs, selling gear, whatever, I don't think there should be a problem with that. It'll have to be regulated. I'm sure it's easier said than done, but I don't have a problem with that. But just to say that you're getting screwed, come on, man. Free college. That is your payment. That is what you're getting. That is what you signed up for, and that is what you are receiving. You knew it ahead of time, and I just don't think that's fair to so many people that work just as hard. Okay, maybe they don't, maybe the guy that works at a restaurant 40 hours a week, or the kid that's in the science department, bringing in money and research for the university. I think that's comparable to athletes, actually. Maybe those guys aren't in the weight room as much as the football players do, but that doesn't mean that they're not putting in the same amount of work as football players do. I mean, just think about that. Are you going to start paying students who are, say, working for a research department for free, like part of their schooling, and they're bringing in money, they're bringing in revenue in the research that they do? Are you going to pay them? Probably not. You're going to say, oh, it's part of what they do as, student researchers. Well, then playing football for free and bringing in millions of dollars for your school's athletic department, that's what you do as a student athlete. Hate to break it to you, Josh. So that's all I have on that. What did Uncle Ben say? With great sports comes tired sports debates. Well, there it is. College football returns, and we're debating on whether or not the players should be paid or not. Wrapping it up here as we are somewhere around the 30-minute mark. I wanted to tell you about something that just made me cry. And I said, was this going to be happy tears, sad tears? What kind of tears was it going to be? Well, these were happy tears. And I'm not being sarcastic, like tears to my eyes when I saw this story, okay? And the only reason I'm bringing it up was because today, the day that this podcast is being recorded, August 14th, it happens to be Tim Tebow's 30th birthday. And Tim Tebow, who, he's been in the news a lot over his entire collegiate and professional career, whether it was winning a playoff game as a Broncos quarterback, whether it was taking a knee after a touchdown and in praying, Tebowing, whether it was winning a Heisman national championship, all that stuff. Tim Tebow's been in the news. But he's mostly been in the news because he has given up, as far as it seems, he has given up on his dream to be a professional quarterback, and he wants to become a professional baseball player. And everyone laughs at it, and everyone, it's easy to mock, it's easy to laugh at him. He's actually done okay. I mean, he's at like A-level baseball, right? He's in the Mets organization. He's with the Port St. Lucie Mets. It's their high A ball team. So, is Tim Tebow ever going to be in the major leagues? Probably not. You never know, but probably not. But the guy's chasing his dreams. Let's just cut the guy a break. Who cares if he's not doing what we want him to do, or whatever, if we don't think it's the right fit? All right, I'm not shy about it. I'm not shy about a lot of my takes. You heard him in the open. LeBron James going to be better than Michael Jordan. Yeah, LeBron James the best basketball player I've ever seen. That's my opinion. That's my take, and I'll back it up. I'll support it. We'll argue about it, and we'll have that debate. I freaking love Tim Tebow. Okay, there it is. There's another hot take. Mark the tape right now. So next time I make a new open, we'll put that in there. I love Tim Tebow. Okay, I can't get enough of the guy. He's a good person. Okay, we can leave religion and everything out of it if we want to, politics and everything. The guy's genuinely a good human being. And I have no problem with somebody chasing their dreams. So last week, Tim Tebow, he's in the on-deck circle at a Port St. Lucie game for the Mets. He's in the on-deck circle, and this whole exchange is caught on video, and that's how I saw this and how it brought a tear to my eye. And so as Tim is warming up, getting his practice hacks in there and watching the pitcher and the batter ahead of him, there's a young kid. I don't know how old he is. I would guess like 8 or 9 years old would be, my guess. And he is autistic. And it's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious that the kid deals with autism, suffers from autism. And he kind of makes his way down. And I guess he had been trying to get Tebow's attention the entire game. And it hadn't happened yet. So he walks down. The mom is maybe 7-8 rows back from the field, and the kid walks down and he's right on the net, just a couple of feet from where Tim Tebow is. There's the net separating the field of play from the stands, and he gets Tim's attention, and Tim Tebow walks over, sticks his hand right through the net and shakes this kid's hand, and the kid just loses it. I mean, he is so emotional. He is so happy that his hero just shook his hand. It just acknowledged him, let alone shaking his hand. And the kid comes back to his mom. The mom is still rolling on video. And the kid starts crying. He's so overcome with joy. He is crying. And that's where I started to cry. And then a couple of minutes later, Tim Tebow goes up to the plate. And I think it was the very first pitch. Yeah, he hits a home run. He freaking drops an oppo bomb to left. It was incredible. I could not believe it. I was so happy. The kid, after Tim Tebow shakes his hand, he starts running back up to his mom, his fist in the air. He is so happy. And when he watched him hit the home run, he still just overcome with emotion, and his mom turns the video camera towards him, the phone towards her son, and of course, what does he do? The first thing, as soon as the camera's on him, he dabs. He hits the dab. It was so great. If you haven't seen that, just Google Tim Tebow home run or Tim Tebow kid, something like that. It'll pop up. You'll watch the video, and if you react any way like I did, you'll be a better person for having watching it. And while I have it up, just because I watched the video again right before we recorded the podcast, since I knew I wanted to talk about it, Tim Tebow's stat line through this point in the season, 248. He's hitting 248 with 6 doubles, a triple, and 5 home runs in 41 games since his promotion to high A ball. So, I'm just going to end it with some ridiculous prediction. Tim Tebow getting called up as a September call-up, I don't think is crazy. I know I just said, is Tim Tebow going to make it to the majors? Probably not. It's not insane to think that he might be a September call-up, whether it's this year or next year if he has a similar season statistically. The Mets are horrible. They are doing so bad this year. They are not going to be in contention when September rolls around. So why not bring in a guy like Tim Tebow? All right, look, the Mets, they were just in town in San Diego a couple of weeks ago. I mean, look, the Mets, I pulled it up. They're 16 and a half games out of first place behind the Nationals at the time that this podcast is being recorded. As far as the wild card goes, they're 11 games back. Okay, they're probably not going to be in contention by the time September rolls around. So the September call-ups are going to be strictly for just getting an idea of how some of these guys look. Why not bring up Tim Tebow and put some butts in the seats for a season that's pretty much lost? A season that is a huge disappointment for Mets fans. Why not? I'm telling you right now, the San Diego Padres hosted the Mets a couple of weeks ago for a 3 or 4 game series. I think I went to one of them. I guarantee you I would have made sure I was at all 4 of them if Tim Tebow was playing. And if I wasn't at 1 or 2 of those games, I would definitely be watching on television or listening on the radio. I would be following along to see how Tim Tebow did. at Petco Park. Maybe that's just because I'm a big Tim Tebow fan and I want to see guys that I support and that I like in person and see them play. Maybe. And maybe you hate Tim Tebow and you're like, that wouldn't do anything for me. But I would just have to guess, wherever you're at listening to this podcast, whether it's in San Diego, somewhere up north, anywhere else, if you have professional baseball, if you have an MLB team in or around your city and you knew that Tim Tebow was going to be there, my guess is either you or someone you know would think, I should go to one of those games. Like that's enticing to me. I don't know. Something to think about, huh? So that's going to wrap it up for episode 51. I'm going to wrap it up with some Tim Tebow talk, huh? Honestly, wasn't sure if I would get to Tim Tebow or not on this edition of the Reindl Report, but we did. So takeaways from today: Chargers, they're the laughing stock of the NFL. Josh Rosen's an idiot. Not really, but probably if I were him, I would backtrack a little bit on what I said about student athletes. And Tim Tebow makes guys like me cry with joy. That's going to be it for the Reindl Report today. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to make the same shameless plug that I make at the end of every podcast. You can go to thereindlreport.com and you can hear this podcast and every other podcast that I've done, all 51 of them, including interviews and everything. It's all archived for you right there on the website, and you can get everything at your disposal, or you can go on iTunes, trying to build the brand, trying to get out and get noticed on iTunes. So what you can do is you can go, if you have an iPhone, you just scroll over to the podcast app. It's the purple app with a microphone on it. Click on that, type in the Reindl Report, and hit subscribe. And all that does, it means that you will be downloading every podcast that I make moving forward. I hit submit, and within like 20 or 30 minutes, you will get a notification once it makes its way onto iTunes that says, hey, check it out. New podcast, episode 51 is available, and it reminds you to go listen to that. I would appreciate it. I'm always down for feedback, whether it's on iTunes, comments on the website, or on iTunes. I don't care. Hey, you can follow me on Twitter as well at Paul Reindl SD and give me some feedback that way, okay? I'm not doing this because I get paid a lot of money. I don't get paid anything to do these podcasts, okay? Not yet, at least. If anybody wants to like sponsor me, go for it. All ears. But I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because I'm assuming by the clicks that I see that somebody cares. Like somebody is interested in what I have to say. So at least tell me what works, what doesn't work. What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you want to hear more of? What do you never want to hear me talk about again? I imagine Tim Tebow or LeBron James takes probably would be at the top of that list. And that's fine. Let me know. So that's how you can follow and subscribe to the podcast. Might have another podcast this week. Not sure. Still working on it. Trying to get another guest lined up for that podcast, whether it's this week or next week. I will talk to you then soon. Thanks for tuning in.